I'm really thrilled to introduce Marialena Carr, who is a former oceanographer, but has become an artist and is a translator. And she is going to read poems by Felícia Fuster, perhaps tell us a little bit more about her and the foundation that is bringing her back to recuperating her for the Catalan audience and now for the American audience. Can the slide show you? Yes. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you. So I'm moving in. My girl knows where I am. She doesn't get out much, so she's really thrilled. You guys might look at her. Her name's Lori. She is definitely a European friend. This includes my I don't let her get out much, and so she's been watching the festival online, and so my screen's a little singed. So I couldn't find pencils, but I have a reading bingo, so if you pay attention when I'm doing the reading. You don't have to. I couldn't get pencils. Golf pencils are not in stock in stores very often, but there is a QR code which will take you to a Google Doc. I have no idea what will happen if you try to do bingo in the Google Doc, but anyway, you guys can pass them around. And thank you. So, so this hopefully will just help you point you out to the themes that I think are super important of Felicia's art. And like I said, I'm moving in. I got a lot of books. So I am very honored to be here. Thank you, Marianne. I am an emerging translator. And it's very hard to follow up on what we started with. I feel bad, but I'm just going to pile these up so that I can. Lori she's actually quite interested in you guys. It's kind of worked. So we were supposed to be accompanied. Boy, the lights are right here. We were supposed to be accompanied by Esther Rodríguez Biosca, who is the director of the Fundació Felícia Fuster. She couldn't make it because she's doing the good work of the foundation. Next month, the programming is pretty formidable. And so if anyone's going to be in Barcelona, check it out, because I think it will be very interesting. So Felícia Fuster was born in 1921 in Barcelona. That's not a great time to be born in Barcelona. She was 15 when the Civil War broke out, and that delayed graduation. That's like the least of it. Her studies were postponed. But she studied art in the three main art schools of Barcelona, or three major art schools of Barcelona. When she graduated from Fine Arts Sant Jordi, she formed with some classmates a collective, and they had exhibits in Madrid and in Barcelona and pretty prestigious galleries. But the post-war period, until the Franco regime was acknowledged by the international community, starting with the US and then the Vatican and then the UN, was not only extraordinarily repressive, but it was also very, very poor. It took almost 20 years for agricultural production, we all think about the agricultural production of Spain, to recover pre-war rates, and it's not like it was super rich before. So things sort of looked up economically after this acknowledgement and American bases and whatnot. But Felícia, like so many other people, had already left. So in 1951, at the age of 30, she moved to Paris alone with 500 francs. And when she got there, she made a living as she could, painting scarves and selling them, teaching Spanish at academies. She met a guy who we might see walking down the street, a Frenchman, and they married. She set up a glass engraving studio and did commissions. She had also trained as a glass engraver, not just as a painter. And but the marriage fell apart after about 8 years, and she needed another form of income, and so she started working in advertising agencies. Never as a creative, always in management level. She wanted to separate her creative activity, but she was still exhibiting. She went through a naive phase. This is where her maternal grandparents village where she spent part of the war, and this is from her naive painting phase. This will just be rolling. If somebody is like very excited, let me know and I'll explain what it is. Anyway, I really want to get to the poem, so I'm going to try to stop babbling. She called herself the dona faber, the woman who can make things, and her parents had had a hardware store in the Barceloneta, and this reminds me a little bit of Remedios Varo, the surrealist painter. Her father was an engineer, and so her paintings have these imaginary, impossible instruments and machines. And Felicia, I don't have tools in my little bingo, but in other poems especially, there are poems. She does mention a tool. I do have cleaning supplies, which is also something she talks about a lot as a female poet of the 20th century. She would buy apartments in Paris and refurbish them. She said she could build a house from the ground up. And I think that helped her financial situation. When she retired, she started writing, dividing her creative time between writing and writing and painting. She traveled, she went to Japan. That had a really strong influence on her. But in the early 80s, a good friend of hers convinced her to submit a manuscript to a very important Catalan prize, the Carles Riba, and she came in finalista. She was like not shortlist, but number 2. And everybody looks around and says, "Who's this lady? Does anybody know who this is?" She had been living in Paris for 30 plus years, and she was a painter. And in one of the articles I read, it was like the phone lines just exploded. They found her, Maria Mercè Marçal, the very, very prominent Catalan poet, was on the jury, and they became very close friends. Maria Mercè Marçal would stay at Felicia's home in Paris when she was researching her book about La Passion de René Vivier, and also Felicia helped her with some translating that Marçal did. So I mentioned that she went to Japan. She was very, very influenced. I may have said she went to Japan, she did. And she was super influenced, and to the degree, both of the art and the poetry and the culture and the religion to some degree, the Zen. And she so engrossed and so interested that she co-translated with Nao Sawada Catalan poetry into the Japanese and Japanese poetry into the Catalan. These books came out in 1991. It was the second book translations of Catalan into Japanese, according to the UE wonderful database. There are 24 books now of Catalan work into Japanese, and but only 3 are poems. And one of them, the second one, was by Felícia Fuster. So that kind of gives you guys an idea that she wasn't a nice little lady who stayed at home and wrote poems. She's very dynamic. In 2005, she set up the Fundació, which had multiple objectives. One of them is to support disadvantaged youth so that they can have access to art and do art or write. And the other is for young scientists. I used to be a scientist. So young artists who are starting, and that is probably the most active grant giving that the Fundació does now. They 3 to 5 young people every year are given a grant. The foundation also aims to spread the Catalan language overseas, and also, of course, to safeguard her artistic and poetry, her writing. She also translated from the French. And the Fundació is now in Barcelona, in Gracia. Well, it's always been in Gracia. And what's very beautiful about it is that her library is there. and of course her papers, but seeing her books on bookshelves was very exciting to me, especially since she had a lot of the same books that my father, who was did comparative literature, had. Anyway, there's a lot to be said about her life. She's very interesting, but I'm not a biographer, and everyone is very tired, so I'm going to share some poems. Let me look at the time. I don't want you to hate me. And so I'm going to start with the first poem. I'm going to be reading in Catalan and in English. And I am being blinded by the light, as some people have sung. So I might move back a little, but I just have to be able to see it. So anyway, this is her first poem, and this is what really struck me about her. And it is one of the words on the bingo. Invocaré l'asfalt de l'ombra, les dents que com les pedres escudreixen, els nombres cabalístics de la pell vençuda, dels morts ressuscitats i sense crani, i els déus perduts i grocs. La meva sang que res de dura i més, perquè retrobis la llum estesa de la tarda, l'espai secret on les estrelles novícies i blanques es despullen, i les abelles del vent, la mel dels núvols. I així aprenguis, quasi sol, a existir en fer-vos a les ombres. Invocaré la sal acelerada, la pols de l'urc que es cansa i cau, les platges amb cent ulls, llegues i mudes, que s'esperen en va per ajudar-nos, el canto surt dels gris que s'extasien en la celístia falsa de la ciutat que pega. I tot ho donaré, i tot per res, i només per veure't viure. Quina falera estranya fa que m'ho jugui tot als daus d'un cor enderrocat, sabent que encara que guanyés, tot ho haig de perdre. So, I suspect most of the people in the room, except my family, know Catalan. So, yes, that's my contribution. But I just kind of want to rush in saying, Corin de Rocat. You can tell she was in Barcelona during the bombing. I'll just be an English speaker over here. I'll call forth the asphalt of the shadow, teeth crumbling like stones into gravel, the Kabbalistic numbers of defeated skin, the risen dead who have no skulls, the lost and yellow gods, my unstoppable blood, and more. So you may find again the drawn-out light of the afternoon, the secret space where novice white stars undress, the wind bees, the honey of clouds. And so you learn, almost alone, how to get by with irons for fingernails. I'll call forth the bone-thirsty salt, the dust of pride that tires and falls, the beaches of 100 eyes, dull and speechless, waiting without hope to tie us down, the relentless singing crickets enthralled to the bogus starlight of the city that never sleeps. And I will give it all, and all for nothing, just to see you live. What strange obsession has me play it all on the dice roll of a heart wrecked and ruined, knowing that even if I were to win, I am to lose it all. So her poems are poems of longing. They're not happy, but she conveys great power, right? So she's calling forth these things. She's a witch, in the best sense of the word. And that is something that reappears in all her poems. She's an outsider, and I think that's the main reason she's not as well known as she should be, and as I think she should be. And she knew it, and she also, her poems always address the inability to connect, the inability to communicate. She evokes a period that anyone who was alive in the 70s and lived in Catalonia or anywhere in Spain would recognize immediately, like trains. So this is another poem. All but one of the poems are from her first two collections. because it's part of the theme and it's also the project I'm working on now. Volia escriure cartes de camins per un correu de fugues, parlar-te amb la remor de l'oliver sobre el front de la tarda, mai més amb el vertigen dels mots abandonats com ponts que cauen, però no puc. Se m'han trencat com una branca que s'asseca els dits. Si vens, potser m'arribaràs d'aquí a 1000 anys, tot descomptant els trens, tremolo encara. Porto ja la nuez. Si vens, potser m'arribaràs d'aquí a 1000 anys, tot descomptant els trens, tremolo encara. El fred dels calendaris em fa por. Porto ja la nuesa dels qui moren, i cor endins va rovellant-se l'esperar, abocada al damunt del jardí buit d'una pàgina inútil amb les restes de mi que quasi ja no soc. No puc. Volia dir-te un mot que no diré, un mot que ressonés per les 1000 cordes de tots els ulls que et tanqui. So there's this word that she's not going to say. I wanted to write you letters of trails for a mail of getaways, to talk to you in the whisper of the olive tree along the front of the afternoon, never again with the dizziness of words jettisoned like falling bridges. But I can't. My fingers have snapped like a drying branch. If you come, you might reach me in 1,000 years, not considering the trains. I shudder still. The cold of calendars frightens me. I wear now the bareness of the dying, and in my heart, the weight is resting away. It's been dumped atop the empty garden of a useless page with the scraps of me. I barely am. I can't. I wanted to tell you a word that I won't say, a word to ring out along the 1,000 ropes of all the eyes pulling you close. There's a lot of maritime imagery. I did not include that in the bingo. And the word would be all powerful. And in fact, silence is what we need to fight against, according to my reading for poems. And this word would hold great power. That's her and her very French-looking husband in Paris. So the next, this, by the way, these were published in English in the Catalan special feature 2022 of Hyperion. And of course, I'm reading the originals from the fabulous Obra Poetica curated by Luisa Julia, the preeminent Felícia Fuster scholar, and of course scholar of so many others, by Proa. So the next poem. Llegidora d'absències i naufragis, secreta com els límits que s'ignoren, poma de sol tendríssima dins l'ombra, gotin de blau damunt els núvols. Això voldria ser, però no sé què soc, ni si em deformo dintre el mirall que em gronxa, ni si m'esquinçaré per una rosa morta o veuré l'aigua trista del teu mirat trencat. Porto, per passar les fronteres, les arrugues del temps, i no tinc plomes a la veu ni cap tinta que esborri, ni guants de malefici ni brúixoles per breixos per a desviar vides. Em sé llunyana dels coratges que busquen els secrets i els crits de les hores lluents. Jo vinc només per oferir-te amb el silenci tens al jardí càlid dels meus braços. And this was published in the latest issue of Hyperion last January. I'd like to be interpreter of the missing, of shipwrecks. I'd like to be as secret as limits unknown, a tender apple of the sun in the shade, a sprinkling of blue onto clouds. But I don't know what I am, or if I warp in the mirror swinging me, or if I'll tear apart for a wilted rose, or to drink the sad air of your shattered gaze. For border crossings, I carry the folds of time. There are no feathers to my voice. I bring no ink for erasing, no gloves to cast a hex, no wicked compass to turn aside lies. I'm a long way from the borehole that probes for the secrets, the cries, the bright hours. I come only to offer you, in strange silence, the warm garden of my arms. So as I'm sure you've noticed already, it is central in the Felícia Fuster reading bingo. She's directing almost all these poems to a you. Somebody that either has left her or she has left, somebody that she would like to reunite with. She has many letters that she can't write. There are letters that she writes and she doesn't send. There are letters that she sends and that don't arrive. The bridges fall. The communication is very hard, and it's hard. That's a fact. And she is offering, but also as in I think the very next, I don't know whether to read less for time, but in the next poem, she actually is, very much to me, is setting a limit that she is the one leading. She is the one who does not need to go further. So. Jump one. The one with the drama theory, so I'm going to jump it. It's a really gorgeous one, but this one I think makes my point. Tanca'm en fora. Se'm fon la pell dels dits de tant jugar a pentinar cascades. Busca les claus per tot arreu, fins al pantà de l'ànima. No et perdis entre els paranys de les viades. No vull entrar. Tanca'm amb l'aire dels carrers mal estirats, amb les rodes més folles que no paren, amb neguit dels avions sense control, ni cor, ni llums per l'aterratge. Tanca'm en fora, sí. Em pesa massa el raïm dels ànims que duc. I aquests 40 cors que no puc empassar-me. Quants segles he tardat per obrir els ulls? Quants terratrèmols d'esperances. Tot em pesa cap dins, com tu, com la claror d'aigua. Sí, tanca'm. Ja sé que hauran de caure al damunt els monts i les teulades, però tantes. Porto la rosa dels vents desesperats a les sandàlies. So she's kind of like Hermes, but better. This is really realistic. Shut me down and shut me out. My fingertips are melting from so much play at combing waterfalls. Search for the keys everywhere, up to the swamp of the soul. Don't get lost through the tripwires of eyes. I don't want in. Shut me down with the stench of badly laid roads, with the wildest wheels that never stop, with planes distressed from no controls, no heart, no landing lights. Shut me out, yes. This cluster of souls I carry weighs me down, and these 40 hearts that I can't swallow. How many centuries for me to open my eyes? How many earthquakes of hope? All of it weighs into me, like you, like the gleam of water. Yes, shut me down. Worlds and rooftops will crash down on me, and so what? On my sandals, I wear the rose of last resort winds. So, I left it out, but one of the very critical, obvious things, and I left it out also in her bio, but she was 63 when she came up as second in this very prestigious prize. And obviously aging is a very big deal in these poems. She has others that are more overtly feminist in terms of don't dress me like this, don't. In the video, Mireia Conta, who is very inspired by Felicia, had as an epigraph a very important poem, a very well-known poem of Felicia's, Quina Ferrat. And, you know, with this clothing that is of a woman, and while it dresses me, it is also leaving me naked. So I did not explore those poems today, and I will now close with one that is from her third book, and that was published in English in Metamorphosis, the special issue that was celebrated today, and very well-deserved celebration. And with this I will close. And I was almost a white sailboat. Oops, starting with the wrong language. I did it on purpose to see if anybody was still awake. I quasi era llaüt blanc. Ara us escric aquests propòsits amb el paper enfilat a la glacera del pensament que un am distreu i amarga. Peixos les mans, com un enigma em desconcerten. Us dic, acabo d'escriure-me amb el gran nus escorredor d'una tempesta. Les espurnes em teixeixen la bufanda i els ulls. Tinc les plomes cremades. La barrinada d'una estranya victòria m'ha desfet. Visc en exili, damunt de les paraules. Comptador esvalotat i pneumàtics de brega, sóc un taxi embalat que no s'atura. Les rodes em fan roderes. Fràgils, els sentits em confonen, els rebots, l'estiu i les pujades. No vull llacís que em premi, cridaré. Ignorada, provaré de passar pel sabor dels camins i pel blavet del mar. No sé si el món m'espera amb una agulla per descossir-me la sang i veure si encara el desafia, si encara crec en Déu i no llegiu dels núvols. Però avui tot és clar. Deixeu que em desenllaci del silenci i digui al cel, afina. Un llapis sense pes se'm posa a escriure. Sé que no vull que es perdin circumloquis ni alambins del desert i no deserto. Escric i em travesso. La pàgina és la pell, el temps que el temps no em dona. Now the English. And I was almost a white sailboat. Now I write you these intentions on paper sharpened at the glacier of thought that a hook distracts and sours. Fishes like hands, they baffle me, a conundrum. Friends, I tell you, just now I quaked at the storm's great slipknot. Sparks weave my scarf, my eyes, my feathers singed. I'm undone by the blast and scuttling of a strange victory. I live exiled on a stack of words. With the fare counter riled up and quarrelsome tires, I'm a runaway taxi that never stops. The wheels spin ruts in me. My brittle senses mix up the U-turns, the summer, the climbs. I want no screw press to flatten me. I'll roar. Unnoticed, I'll try to slip along the soap of the paths and through the seas bluing. I don't know if the world waits, needle in hand, to unsew my blood, to see if it's still defiant, if I still believe in God and in cloud bleach. But today, all's clear. Let me unstrap myself from stillness and tell the heavens to me. A weightless pencil sets to writing. I know I don't want it lost in twisted tangents or in desert alembics, and I'm no deserter. I write and I lance myself. The page is the skin, the time won't give me. So this one very much speaks to the body and how writing is a physical act that stabs her, just runs through her, and that she is using her own body. She's wresting control of her chemical transformation from sailboat to taxi to being in a naval battle that she's won and doesn't even understand why, to finally walking through the desert. And that is her path, and her writing allows her to live forever because her very skin is the page. So anyway, thank you for listening, and I don't know how over time I've gone, but I'm very happy to know. Any questions? Not so many of us.
You actually, your explanations were so, I think it's all about being, no, I mean, and engaging and charming and delightful. I really enjoyed it.
She's engaging, charming, and delightful, isn't she? Yes. So Lori says bye.
Yes, thank you. Well, we have to get a whole book written and then translated.
Yep,
I will.
I'm on it.
Yeah. Well, thank you again for everything. This has been amazing. I think the thing about being the curator is that everything you see is what you wanted to see, but it absolutely went way beyond and even my expectations. So thank you for being with us, and see you tomorrow. I hope.